Hello again, Us Nation, and welcome to another installment of OneOfUs.Show here at OneOfUs.net. This is, of course, our swanky interview series wherein we chat with a number of wonderful folks from all corners of the geekosphere about their individual passions and what makes them one of us. I am your host, Brian Salisbury, and we have an amazingly special show for you today. I am joined by the stars of the upcoming Lionsgate film Youre Next, Barbara Crampton and AJ Bowen. You might remember Barbara from classic titles like Reanimator, From Beyond, and Shopping Mall. Love that one. And you may recognize AJ from contemporary genre standouts like House of the Devil and The Signal. Youre Next is the fantastic home invasion horror film opening this Friday that you should all definitely head to theaters to witness. But today, AJ and Barbara have been kind enough to sit down with me to talk about why they are such geeks for acting. What is it about this art form that they love? How did they get started? I guess we should let them take it away and explain what it is that makes them one of the us. The first thing I would have to ask is when did the passion sort of come about for you? At what point in your life?
From a very early age, but I didn't try to start doing it until college and until I'd already given up. You think you already know that, until I'd given up playing the tuba. But I can recall the moment I was 8, 9 years old. I was 8 years old. And I wanted to be an astronaut, and I had chicken pox, and I was at home, and I watched the Challenger explode. And I didn't want to be an astronaut anymore. And then about 6 months later, and I've mentioned this for years now, but it's a literal moment that I can pinpoint. Space Camp, the movie, came out later that fall, and my dad took me to see it, and I watched it, and it's about kids that go to space camp and end up going into space. And I watched it because I was in love with Kate Capshaw and Leah Thompson and wanted to be both their boyfriends at the same time. And I watched it, and it occurred to me for the first time that I could be an astronaut without dying. Like, I could pretend.
Right. And
that if you were an actor, you could put on the spacesuit and you could be weightless. And that sounds ridiculous, but at the same time, becoming a bit aware at that moment that there's a viability in growing up inside your mind, inside your sense of imagination. So that never left me, and I sort of exhausted every other option before I got into trying to do it. And then I had some friends at Boston University in the conservatory program, and thought, well, I'm dropping out of Indiana University for tuba, I'm going to give it a try, and failed miserably. Ended up in Georgia with people I made the signal with, and bless you. And here we are.
All right. What about you, Barbara?
I can't remember a time when I didn't want to be an actress.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the carnival business, and my dad was a carnival barker and had many games, and we would travel every summer through Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Virginia, and take our county fair every week to a new place. And my dad, they called him the best mic man in the business because he could make anybody believe anything and call people in and have them spend money at his game as opposed to another game. And he was very much of a showman, so I think I took after him in that regard. I grew up watching, I'm old, so I grew up watching Betty Davis
old.
And
you do have Betty Davis eyes.
and Miriam Hopkins in the old 40s movies, the $1 Million Movie used to come on. You guys don't remember this, but it would come on WPIX on Channel 11 every day after school, and that's what I would do from the time I was probably in 2nd grade. I would watch a movie every day and then do my homework. And around that time also Dark Shadows came out, and I was addicted to Dark Shadows and never frightened by it at all. And I think watching Dark Shadows was what really made me want to become an actress.
I remember you, in the first week that we knew each other on set, I remember you talking about Dark Shadows. Mm-hmm. And were you watching old episodes on a laptop or something? I don't know, but I think you told Rob about it. Mm-hmm. We sort of all swapped these stories of things that we were really into, and we're watching each other's shit while we were spending our time not shoot while Sharni was going around beating people in masks. Like the rest of us would sit in this room sequestered, and we would trade our stuff, but the things that inspired us back and forth. And I remember Dark Shadows was a big one that you talked about.
Dark Shadows, Betty Davis, and also Danny Kaye.
Yeah,
I love Danny
We
Kaye.
didn't talk about Danny Kaye. I love Danny Kaye.
Court Jester's one of my favorite
all-time
movies.
favorite actor.
I love Danny Kaye.
adored him, and he was just so, like my dad. He was just so big and so broad. I loved that kind of acting. I
never
almost,
had a disservice to the integrity of the emotional.
never, ever, so real and never, always full, but always very real. I just adored him. I almost had an opportunity to meet him. He was in the hospital right before he died. This was a number of years ago. Maybe it was 20 years ago or so. He was at Cedars-Sinai in LA, and I heard that he was really sick and he was in the hospital, and so I wanted to bring him some flowers. So I went to a flower shop, got a beautiful bouquet of flowers, and I brought it into the hospital, and they said, well, he's on the second floor, so go up there. So I went up to the second floor, and I went to the nurse's station, and I said, I have some flowers, and here's a note to Danny Kaye. And she said, well, his room is right over there. Do you want to go bring it to him? And I
Froze.
And I said, no, I can't be that intrusive. He doesn't know me. I'm basically a fan. I had been an actress already, but I just felt like that was too much. So I dropped off the flowers and the card, and he sent me a note back.
Oh.
Yeah, I still have that note.
So now that you guys are on this side of it, do you ever have to balance that whole, it's a profession, or does the passion remain even though you're kind of dealing with the more logistic side of it? Does it ever feel like a job more than a passion? Or
it always feels like a passion. I don't think we ever get to do it as much as we want to. I spent a lot of time on soap operas, as your mom can attest to. And so working on soap operas, you usually worked about 3 days a week. It was kind of like a part-time job, the best part-time job you could ever have. But insofar as working on movies is concerned, I feel like, you get to do 1 or 2 a year, and then maybe you might go, in my case, for like 7 years and not do anything. So I feel like we never get to do enough of it. There's a lot of great actors out there, and maybe, now with the advent of so many different venues to watch, there is more product being generated, so maybe we can do a little bit more. But as I get older too, there's not as much for me to do. I worked a lot more in my 20s and 30s, and so this has come as a nice surprise for me to work on this movie, and it being as good as it is, it's been a real gift to me, and definitely inspired me and given me the bug to work a little bit more if I can.
I think that, and I've said it to other people before, that I figured out at this point, like 9 years into this as a job, that my job is to not make movies. That's the part that's actually work. I'm no good at taking vacations. I just went to Hawaii and I had a terrible time. And the reason that I did was because I just wanted to be on set. I can't speak to why other people may have gotten into it. It's really hard to do. And there's sort of for me, a purity in that struggle, and I think that I don't know that it would be possible for that privilege to be lost on me. So, and I legitimately want to be making movies. I don't want to do the red carpet thing. I don't care about I don't give a shit about premiere stuff or, talking to Brian Salisbury about stuff.
No, nobody wants to.
I don't give a fuck about that stuff. But I'm touching it. But I care very much about collaborating on storytelling. And I figured out that that's the vacation. That's sort of the prize that I get for spending my time not getting to do something. And there's a lot of sacrifices that have to be made for it. And I think the other thing is, I look at it the way that my parents looked at raising me, or I try to. I talk to my mom about it a lot, where it's my job to not let people know the reality of being an actor, because it seems like a really fun thing, and obviously it is. That's why we do it. There's a whole lot of work and discipline involved with it, and mostly a whole lot of rejection that people don't have to deal with. And now with this movie, I'm becoming aware. And this movie, I have no idea. It's just as easily in my mind going to be 12th in the box office opening weekend and no one will ever hear about it again. Or it could end up doing Conjuring numbers. I just have no way of knowing, and frankly, it's not something that concerns me too much because I can't let it because I have nothing to do with it.
Right.
But there's a visibility that's different now with this one, and I'm aware of the difference there and how it can be a conflict with the concepts of creativity. I went to last week. I had IFC on, and a Youre Next ad came on. I got out of the house because that was like the third one I'd seen that day, and I thought that this was going to be a high five moment every time. And I quickly reached a point where I started to feel like, this is too much attention. This is way too much attention. I feel selfish for this amount of attention. So I walked up the street to order some tacos, and I sat down on the bench waiting for them, and there was a Youre Next ad on the bench. And while I was sitting on that bench, this is a true story, while I was sitting on that bench, a bus pulled up to the bus stop, and it had a Youre Next ad on the bus. And while I was looking at it, almost like Die Hard with a Vengeance rack focus moment, I saw behind it, across the street, a billboard for Youre Next.
So you're actually being stalked by the wolf
by our movie.
Yeah.
And then I walked back home, past another different Youre Next billboard. I'm not talking like in somebody's window that I printed out and taped into a coffee shop. And then I walked back into my house. I change it to MTV to start eating my tacos, and another Youre Next spot comes on, a different one. And that feels unfair. I feel like I'm taking up too much of people's time. That's something I'll have to reconcile.
Does that come from working in a lot of indie movies?
Yeah. Because I think about
You're not used to that.
I think about how many movies I could fund for the amount that's going into selling one movie, and how many people that could feed, and the way that I'm trying to make right with it in my mind is by trying to advocate for other people that are starting out. Like, I saw The Battery and was really touched by it and thought it was a really special movie, and so it became a mission for me, like maybe I can get 12 people to watch that movie, and if out of those 12, 3 of them like it and tell somebody else, then there's a purpose to that, to having slightly more people be familiar with the work.
And there's so many young people in this movie that do incredible work, and I think you all deserve this kind of attention, and I feel like this is going to give you more opportunity to work on more movies and to do exactly what you're saying.
It got me grow up Tony Phillips.
Hell yeah, it did.
Well, this guy beat the shit out of me during
Really?
It was fun. Being recognized within a certain genre, do you feel that that's a blessing or a curse? Specifically, obviously, horror is what I'm referring to.
Oh, you're asking if like it's something that where it's like I'd like to do other things?
Right, because I mean, obviously, you don't seek out to have. I mean, or maybe you do to have a specific place and niche that you fit into really well. But obviously, after a while,
yeah, I get what you're saying. That's a marketing thing, though, and I don't believe in that because again, it's counterintuitive to the creative process. I understand that you'll, on a long enough timeline, if you've had the good fortune of doing enough work, that there will be a branding that occurs, but I'm not in charge of that. I can't control what people do about that.
So that's not something you seek out. It's just sort of...
No, I do. I like to work, and that's the type of work that I've had an option to do up till now, and now I have the ability to do some different types of work. And it's not that I don't want to continue to do horror, but after 9 years, it's time to do something else. That's why I did grow up Tony Phillips. Right. And that's why, as a screenwriter, I'm not writing anything in genre, because creative fulfillment for me requires more than like one brand. I need to do different things. I wanted to make a family film. I want to do comedy. I want to do drama. I want to do one of those movies where there's romance and people eat chocolate-covered strawberries.
Yeah, I've seen those.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to look you like right in the eyes when I said that. I'm sorry, Barbara.
What do you think about that? Because you're also someone who, for a lot of people, in fact, a cult fandom of people have come to recognize you for horror. Do you also see that as sort of creatively taxing?
No, not at all. I welcome it, actually. When I started working as an actress, I worked a lot in soap operas, and I worked a lot in horror movies, and people just kept hiring me for the damsel in distress. Sometimes I would fight back roles. And since coming back doing Youre Next, and I come back when there's all this social media outbreak, you know, with Facebook and Twitter. I didn't know anything about any of that stuff until after working on this movie, maybe a few months. I joined everything because everybody said to me, we need to keep in touch with you, all the people from the movie, so join these sites and then, you know, we'll all be connected. And so I did, and then I finally started to see, oh, I actually am part of this club that I didn't know I belonged to, this horror genre club, and I've loved horror movies from the time I was really little. So I watched the Outer Limits and Twilight Zone with my dad, and I loved Dark Shadows. So it's actually a genre that I really care about a lot. So to be back in it with a movie like this, I'm really thrilled.
Barbara's so right about the club thing. And it's the opposite of an exclusive club. That's a club that exists if you just want to talk about movies, if you just like watching movies. And it's such a privilege to have gotten to make some movies in a particular part, in this branch of storytelling, in this branch of film, that can interest people hopefully in the same way that when I was younger I was interested in. And I love this genre. I love that I got to be in a movie with Barbara. I mean, I'm not trying to be cute about that, but you know, some of the movies it's been such a privilege to go, man, I got to tell Stuart Gordon happy birthday yesterday and then call him.
Yeah,
you know, and
that's amazing.
How this group of cinema works, and
it's a very close culture,
and blessing.
You know, everybody's friends with one another, and it's a real camaraderie, familial group that I feel proud to be a part of.
Excellent. Well, AJ Bowen, Barbara Crampton, thank you for joining us on OneOfUs.Show, and Youre Next opens August 23rd. Everybody needs to go see it, or I will personally hunt you down. And you can catch further installments of OneOfUs.Show right here on our YouTube page, or you can download them directly from our website, OneOfUs.net. And while you're there, check out the other content we have for you that covers even more corners of the geek world. This is Brian Salisbury, once again thanking our guests AJ Bowen and Barbara Crampton, and everyone out there, remember, you are all part of the us.